All the controversy of Luke and Two Live Crew was something to cash in on in the eyes of Luke. So he came up with the concept that instead of putting out 2 albums back to back for Two Live Crew, that what he would do is he'd put out a Luke solo album that effectively was a Two Live Crew album. Two Live Crew would be responsible for the bulk of production and performance. Just it was a Luke album in name, and it could also open up the parameters for a few other label artists to take part in it. So it's a pretty good marketing strategy. It's certainly a way to cash in and seize the moment with all the attention. So much so that Luke actually convinced Atlantic Records to step in and back the album. But this is where things get very questionable. Two Live Crew had always been working without a contract. But suddenly a contract was presented to the members of Two Live Crew for this album, and they signed it, each of them. And without realizing it, what they signed was work for hire, meaning that they will get paid a one-time fee of $14,000 apiece for their work on this album. And again, they did the bulk of the work on this album, possibly up to 80% or more. Well, after the check was paid and no other checks were following, that's when they questioned it. And Luke bought a $500,000 mansion in Miami Lakes, as they all noticed that they only got $14,000 apiece. So, as Mr. Mixx put it, when I wasn't invited to the housewarming, I went home. Because Two Live Crew are not from California, not from Florida. Two Live Crew are from California. So he moved to Oakland and really took on a West Coast persona for a moment. He started a company called T-Shirt and Khaki Productions in 1990. T-Shirt and Khakis, of course, was the uniform for gangster rap at the time, even notable in an Ice Cube lyric, I bust a hat, a T-shirt, and some khakis. So you could tell that Mr. Mixx he was fed up with it. And at some point, Mr. Mixx and Brother Marquise realized that Shy-D was suing Luke for unpaid royalties. Maybe we should be doing the same. So the Atlantic deal for Luke, that was the one-time thing, because there was no more Two Live Crew in 1990. They broke up. The irony, Luke decided to try to hire them back to do a sequel album. As Nasty as They Want to Be Part 2, Sports Weekend. Well, they'd all gone their separate ways. Fresh Kid Ice had stayed behind and tried to make amends, but the other members left. So Luke successfully reunited them, worked for hire. They all had their contracts reviewed. Luke did have lawyers himself on retainer, as he should at this time. When you've got Shy-D coming at you with Richard Wolff, the notable South Floridian entertainment lawyer, Luke retaliated by having his own lawyers on payroll, such as Lil Joe Weinberger and Nick Manzini. So they were well aware of what they were about to enter. The problem is they had another album to do, even if it was work for hire, even if they were all suing each other. They had another album to do. Contracts were signed. And what are Miami-based albums made on? What are hip-hop albums made on in the late 80s, early 90s? Samples. And this is where we enter a problem. Specifically, Grand Upright Music Limited versus Warner Brothers Records Incorporated. Now this is the Biz Markie sampling case. For hip-hop historians, even cursory hip-hop historians, they know. The Biz Markie sampling case is what changed our language. The case started, and it put everyone on notice. What are we going to do about the samples that we have? Well, with Sports Weekend, it became a headache of red tape. They spent more money clearing samples for Mega Mix 4, the turntablist song for the album, than they've spent ever on anything. So once the album was completed, it was largely forgotten. Now, Sir Mix-a-Lot had already had success in the Miami-based game with his album Swass. But it was when he signed with Rick Rubin's Def American. Rick Rubin had already left Def Jam Records and started Def American and got a major label backing. So when he signed Sir Mix-a-Lot, and Sir Mix-a-Lot decided to do some Miami-based songs, specifically one hit, Baby Got Back. Now, Baby Got Back is a top 40 novelty hit. But at the same time, it's a quality Miami bass song from Seattle. But it was backed by major label money and not connected to the South Floridian scene.
Isn't it weird that that song didn't even have a hook? What was it? The dun 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 dun.
Which is a Detroit techno song.
And the topic and the rap, people rapped along with it because the hook was really scratching. That was total Miami bass. Right?
Yep.
All right, cool.
Wait, should I start that beat again?
Yeah.
Baby, the thing about Baby Got Back, it's a blessing and a curse. It is a truly Miami-based record. It truly is a quality record. But it also was so high profile that the subject of the record, booty, now is synonymous with bass in a way that haunts all of us. That those of us who didn't necessarily want to do a song about booty, or even if we did, we just want to have the right to come and go with it. But now it's a formula. Now, Miami bass music is either this car audio cottage industry or booty music. And all the edits and all the turntablism is out the door. All the SP1200 tricks has to end because in December of 1991, the Biz Markie sampling case was finalized and Biz Markie was sued. And it set a precedent. No longer could people sample records and get away with it without clearing them. And clearing them means negotiation. And negotiation means you have to have some big money behind you. And that was something that Miami Bass never truly had, was a solid financial backing.